morning. Well, US President Donald Trump wants to pull 4 countries from the European Union. That's according to leaked documents. The plan is to make Europe great again. Mega. Joining us live now, News Corp's Europe correspondent, Sky News contributor Sophie Elsworth. Good to see you, Sophie. Good evening your time. So just elaborate on these leaked documents. Can you explain what they're all about?
Yeah, of course, Pete. Basically, there's been reports of these extended leaked documents about plans that Donald Trump has to have countries pull out of the EU in a Brexit-style situation. Now, there's several countries that are involved in this, 4 that have been named in this document. It's Austria, Hungary, Italy, and Poland. But interestingly, the White House has come out and said the original document, which came out last week, is correct, but this extended document with more information, including reports in recent days, is actually not real and it's fake news. So this is quite confusing for people, Pete, to know what is real and what is not.
Why does he want them to leave? What's his advantage here?
So he's really annoyed with the situation with the EU, Pete. He's been very critical of the EU. He said they haven't done enough to try and stop the war in Ukraine. He's also been very critical of here in the UK as well, saying that the country's got this migration problem, which he also has said is rife throughout Europe, that they have too many migrants coming in and it's a problem with the countries there. So he wants to see them pull out of the EU because he said the EU is not good for them.
Okay, but I mean, how would that change things overall? I mean, by taking 4 countries out, and you know, Italy's Meloni and Trump get along well, I think. I mean, and he's quite friendly with Hungary and Poland too, right?
That's exactly right. We know he's very fond of the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. They have a good relationship. She was in America earlier this year with the US president. But he's fed up with the EU. He doesn't like the way that it exists. He doesn't like the way the countries prop up each other. And he wants these 4 countries, supposedly through these documents, to remove themselves from the EU. But Pete, it's very confusing to know, is this actually correct? Because the White House have come out and said these latest documents that are extended version are not actually real.
I mean, and you can't just do it. You can't just click your fingers and do it, right? I mean, there's a huge process. You're going, what's the Italians would go back to the lira, would they?
Well, it's a convoluted process, Pete. I mean, you know, here with Brexit, how complicated it was here for the UK.
Yeah.
So it's not something that they can just do overnight. But he is really getting involved in issues in Europe and also in the UK. Just a couple of days ago, he was saying how sad he was to see the situation here in London with illegal migrants. He said London isn't the city that it is. He really hit out repeatedly at the London Mayor Sadiq Khan, which he does all the time. He dislikes him intensely. So he said he's very fond of England, but he's sad at what's happening here. And he said similar problems are also happening in Europe. And he's pretty irate that the war in Ukraine hasn't stopped. And he said the European leaders have not done enough to try and stop this war between Ukraine and Russia.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who would agree with him too on that point, and not just the war in Ukraine, but also Gaza. I mean, he said a long time ago that Europe is not pulling their weight. And obviously he's getting frustrated that he's having to do the heavy lifting when it comes to multiple wars, when he'd prefer to be focusing on more domestic matters. But Sophie, we'll leave it there. Thanks for your time. We'll chat to you again next week.